What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Happiest Hour on Earth. We're going to start tonight's episode with a question. Have you ever felt a little reluctant to tell someone that you're a Disney fan because you think they're going to think of you as someone who just watches kid movies all day? And, yes, I've been there. We've been there, right? Well, we are going to be talking tonight about why we watch Disney movies, but not kid movies. And so, are Disney movies kid movies? Technically, yes. We don't really watch animated movies outside of Disney. And so we kind of wanted to break down the reason why. And I think there's a lot that goes into it. You might be in a similar boat. You might just be park lovers, Disney park lovers, and not really watch the movies. You might be a Disney fan that watches Disney movies, but also watches Illumination movies or DreamWorks or whatever it might be. But we're really excited tonight to talk about why we watch Disney movies, what makes them different than other animated studios, and all of that. So kind of going back to the Disney adult topic that we have discussed in previous episodes that we just love talking about. And so I'm really excited to jump into this episode and just kind of break everything down. So with that, let's go ahead and jump on in.
Let's do it.
All right, before we get started on this episode, if you are watching on YouTube, if you could go ahead and click that like button and that subscribe button, that helps out our show so much. We're almost at 700 subs. Super exciting. And then also, if you're listening on a podcasting platform, you could go ahead and click the follow button. And on Spotify, you could click a little 5 stars. Super, super easy. On Apple Podcasts, you could do a 5-star. You could write us a review. You could just say love this podcast. Very easy, very short. It takes 1 minute. Yeah, best podcast ever. It really supports our show so much, and we can't thank you enough for that. Also, we have some links in the description below if you want to save on some coffee, candles, Disney teas, Disney vacations as well, or if you want to shop some Happiest Hour merch, you want them. Oh, yeah. No, just kidding. You can go check out our merch store over there. But some fun stuff, everything that goes to help us, but honestly, most of the money will probably go to
our
baby
children.
Diapers and toys, but no money for us. Yeah, no money for us.
That's what happens when you become a parent.
Yeah, exactly.
Money goes to the kids.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this episode.
I think that the first thing we wanted to talk about was, are Disney movies considered kid movies? Obviously, yes. From the beginning, that's like what they were about. They were meant to be for kids, going all the way back to Snow White and Pinocchio and all the originals. It's like, obviously they were meant to be for kids. But I think over the years, we can all agree that they've grown to become something that someone from any generation can appreciate. I mean, especially due to the fact that those movies came out so long ago now. Yeah. I mean,
the 30s.
Yeah, like our grandparents basically were growing up on the original Disney movies. So honestly, they extend through the generations. And I think that we can all appreciate them for that now at this point. We're in our 30s. Our kids are still growing up on a lot of the classics, I feel like. I mean, our son still loves Peter Pan to this day, and that's from the 50s, It's like you can just appreciate them for the incredible stories and the animation and the characters that we all know and love, the music. There's just so much to them to love. And I think it doesn't just stick to kids, Because
I think that's the thing too, is when we're talking about it generationally, like literally our grandparents. So pretty much everyone that we, within our close family grew up on Disney movies. I mean, our parents were 60s. So before that, their parents, our grandparents, were probably a little bit older when, Snow White came out, but still, I'm trying to remember when my grandparents were born. I don't remember, but I'm assuming they're pretty young at that point. Yeah. But the cool thing is that they get to show their kids, our parents, movies that they grew up on. And then our parents got to show us movies that their parents watched and that they watched as a kid. And then the new ones coming out. It's cool because we get to show our kid some of our favorite movies.
Yeah.
I mean, even movies like Emperor's New Groove. I know that's not like a classic, but we get to show him a movie that we thought was hysterical when we were kids. And then showing a movie and being like, this came out before your grandma was even born. Mm-hmm. And they still hold up that to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And no other film studio has that kind of legacy, you know? And that's when we're thinking about legacy, it's not just US based. I mean, Disney movies are really a part of like culture all around the world. All around the world, people have grown up with these movies. So it's not even local to here, but it has such an impact globally. And it's just awesome to see. But I thought it was very interesting as we were thinking about this episode to talk about kind of how it spans the generations and why no other studio really has that kind of core that Disney does, is because they didn't really have competition, like major competition, until about the 80s and 90s. And so I'm going to be listing off some movies that you guys have probably seen in the past, but you could understand why, these might be great movies, but it doesn't really hold itself up to Disney. So Disney's first real competitor that kept up with them was the Don Bluth Entertainment Company. There might have been some like way back in the past, but those are movies that you just don't really hear about today, right?
Yeah.
But Don Bluth Entertainment, this was created by former Disney animator Don Bluth and some other Disney animators. And so they split from the company right around the Fox and the Hound. So Bronze era, I believe, right? And they cited their reason for leaving was dissatisfaction over the studio's bureaucracy and the churn them out type of attitude when filmmaking. And so I think we're almost in a similar phase right now with Disney movies, is that they have to put one out every year and they're just kind of like pumping out movies. And so that probably led to Don Bluth and some other animators leaving at that time, because the Bronze era was not really the best in Disney filmmaking. But they split, did their own studio, Don Bluth Entertainment. They created The Secret of Nim, which was 1982, something we didn't really grow up with. An American Tail, I grew up with a little bit in 1986. That was Feifel, like that little mouse. And then Land Before Time, 1988. Yes.
Good stuff.
They made, All Dogs Go to Heaven, 1989. Thumbelina, I grew up with as well, 1994. And Thumbelina was the last great hit from the Don Bluth Entertainment Company. But that was, if you look at that, they only competed with Disney for about a decade. And then they kind of went under. It was shut down and they ended up becoming a part of Fox Animation Studios. And so here we got Anastasia, which was 1997, which a lot of people love. Anastasia, great movie. Bartok the Magnificent, I didn't even know what that was. 1999. Titan AE, I have some friends, if you're listening to this podcast, Will and Christian, they're like the biggest Titan AE dudes in the world. That came out in 2000.
A tattoo of it?
They do have a tattoo that is from
like the
kind of from that
something?
movie. Yeah. And so, it's so good. And then Fox Animation Studios, that became Blue Sky Studios. And so Blue Sky Studios created Ice Age 2002 that we grew up with, Robots 2005, Rio 2011. That was kind of like when we stopped watching animated movies like outside of Disney. And now they live with 20th Century Animation, which is Disney owned once the Fox merger went through. So, but you could see that like Disney has been the same studio ever since the 30s, with Snow White. And this went through multiple different things. So it was always changing. So it didn't really have that I keep going back to legacy, but that's exactly what it is. But we had a second competitor in like the 2000s. These are also movies that you guys will know. First, it started off with Amblimation, which is like Amblin Entertainment, E.T., all that kind of stuff. They made An American Tail, Feifel Goes West. Then they did Balto in 1995, which you were a big Balto girl.
Grew up on Balto.
Yeah. And that's so that Amblimation, if I'm saying that right, was started by Steven Spielberg. Him and Don Bluth actually worked together. Then they split. That's when Steven Spielberg did Amblimation. But they really only made those two movies. There might have been one more in there that just didn't do too well. Amblimation turned into DreamWorks Animation that we all know. We love their movies. They are great. that became DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and former chairman of Disney, Jeffrey Katzenberg. So a lot of these people came from Disney to create their own thing. So this was kind of, Renaissance era, because this was like in the 90s compared to Don Bluth leaving in like the Bronze era, was this new animation studio. So DreamWorks, their parent company, Universal, they came out with Prince of Egypt first, 1998. Great movie. Gosh, that music, totally so incredible. Shrek in 2001. Come on. We gotta give our love to Shrek. We love Shrek. Madagascar, 2005. I grew up with it. I grew up with Kung Fu Panda 2, 2008, and How to Train Your Dragon. But then after that, I kind of dwindled off. They're, big one right now is Trolls. There's so many Trolls movies now. I think it's Trolls 3. That was 2016 when it first came out, and they just keep making those Trolls movies. But by that time, I was like, come on, it doesn't hold up. That was in the 2000s. They're still going strong today, but they also have that third competitor, which is Illumination. From Sony, but they're distributed by Universal, if I got that right. That's why we see a lot of Illumination films in Universal Studios. Yeah. Despicable Me, that came out in 2010. Secret Life of Pets 2016. Sing 2016, that's also like really big with the kids. There's like a lot of songs that kids sing, and I'm like, I don't know what that's from.
Yeah,
and it's like from Sing. And then Super Mario Brothers movie, and there's a new movie, Migration, coming out 2023. But we could see that like all these are either recent or they've been around for a little bit, like the 80s, 90s, but they've like collapsed and like turned into something else. And it's not like the legacy that Disney has. And so, in the future, if these studios like DreamWorks is still around when our kids are older and they have kids, DreamWorks can definitely be kind of like a new Disney for them because it survived through so many decades. But so we could see a shift in that future where Disney isn't as, the one that reigns supreme, but I don't know. I mean, we also see that with like the Academy Awards, like the Oscars. Disney wins like most of those animated, best animated movies, but we have seen them lose a few in the past couple years.
They just haven't been quite up to par, I guess.
Yeah.
It's been a while, I feel like, since there's been just a really incredible Disney movie that blew us away.
And they go back and forth, right? Like some years it's Disney that wins. Sometimes it's Pixar that wins. DreamWorks wins some. I know last time it was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio that won Best Animated Feature. But thankfully, like Disney and Pixar that are in the running. And so it kind of shifts back and forth between those. But it's just very interesting to see because I think now there is a lot more competition that doesn't really hit with us because we didn't really grow up with it. Like DreamWorks, of course, but Shrek got oversaturated. I know people are talking about like, let's not do a Toy Story 5. And I'm like, I'd rather a Toy Story 5 than like a Shrek, 6 or something. I don't know how many Shrek movies there are, but like that means a lot more to us than that. And as we look at Shrek and we look at Toy Story, Shrek is really fun, but Toy Story has a lot of lessons, which I think is our next point. Like just the lessons that you could pull out of Disney. And so, I mean, do you want to take that? Cause there's so many things, especially Pixar. Yeah. I think there's so many lessons that can ring true for everyone.
Yeah. I think we all can agree to that. I mean, pretty much any, especially Pixar, I guess, movie has something very important to take away from it, usually at the end of the movie. I could say that for pretty much all of them. It's hard to think of one that doesn't have like something very heartfelt that you can learn from even as an adult. I'm thinking of like Finding Nemo is so great with just the father-son relationship and learning how to, relate to each other, especially as parents. That's like such a good one, just learning the balance of being too overly protective versus not protective enough and that kind of thing. And, obviously Toy Story, there's just so much to relate to in terms of just growing up and growing out of the things that you loved as a child, but also just keeping that that love for those things.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously love Toy Story 3. We've talked about that recently. And that's the one that just kind of wraps up everything with Andy. And, you know, we were kind of his age all throughout from the beginning to when he went off to college. And so we can really just relate to that, like growing up and just kind of missing the innocence of your childhood and the toys that you loved so much, and just the nostalgia of that. So that's such an important one. I don't know.
And that's the balance of that is so good because our son enjoys Toy Story 3 because it's a fun adventure. There's a lot of great moments in that movie. He doesn't take the whole Andy growing up thing. I don't think he really takes that to heart because he just when he sees Andy giving the toys to Bonnie, he's thinking, Bonnie, you know, someone is so nice and they give me toys, where we're thinking about it as from Andy's perspective. Oh my gosh, like growing, it's so hard to grow. Like everyone has to grow up and there's exciting things about growing up, but that also means losing a little bit of yourself. While also when you see Andy playing with his toys one last time, like being able to tap back into that childhood is just so sweet. But it's cool because kids watch those movies with one perspective, while adults they always have a different perspective that parents can have. And I think that goes back to what Walt Disney said about the theme parks, is that he wanted to create a place where kids and their parents can have a great time. You know, that parents can have fun with their kids. I think that goes
that relates to the movies.
Exactly, with the movies. While you're watching it, like I would zone out in a new if I went to see Migration, I would maybe zone out a little bit. Maybe I'm just being harsh. I think I have this like bias towards Disney where like anything that's not Disney, I'm like,
it's like, do I really need to take the time to watch it? Do I really need
to watch a kid's movie? Like Disney, I will watch, of course. But like anything else, like I don't really know if I want to watch a kid's movie. I don't know if you guys are similar. Let us know. But
obviously there's some really good non-Disney animated films.
Yeah.
We had plenty of our own favorites that we were mentioning in there. There's quite a few that were really good. I haven't seen a lot from the studios
that made
in a while.
Those favorites now.
Yeah, like those were a lot of favorites. Yeah, Shrek, Ice Age, Balto, another one. Not even sure what studio it was from, but one of my favorites of all time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Iron Giant.
Oh, Iron Giant.
That is an incredible animated movie.
That is so
no
good.
idea what animation studio did it.
See, that's the thing. You don't.
It was just like a one-off movie that was really good.
Like DreamWorks, like kind of was like, oh, it's a DreamWorks movie. You go back to that kid who's fishing on the moon. Like that is something. But like for that, there's no, oh, it's this. You know, with a Disney movie, you're like, of course it's a Disney movie. Did you get, okay, wait, side break too. Would you guys ever get mad, like growing up and like being a Disney person when someone's like, oh, Shrek, Disney movies are the best. And you're like oh.
No.
And you don't want to be that person who's like, actually. But that was me all the time. I'd cringe all the time.
Very
like
cringy.
Even Despicable Me, I'd be like, Disney, they're the best. Is that Disney or Pixar? You're like, oh.
Like my heart.
It's so rough. But the other thing I wanted to bring up too, and I had it, you already touched a little bit on music, but I think there is something, music definitely sets Disney apart from everything else. Where, yes, I know, like I said, there's like kids who love the music from Sing. It's like, aren't those just like, it's different. It's not like, when you hear a Disney song,
you know
it does something to you. And that goes back to the generations too, because you've heard these songs forever. And it's not even like a sing-songy, like even like the main hits, just the score. You hear that score and you're like, you're transported to you like sitting on the floor, like watching an old big TV, you know, in your living room. Like there's something about that. And they've had amazing songwriters all throughout their movies. And it does strike a chord within you that you're like, oof, that is something magical there.
Yes, it taps into your childhood every time you hear those songs.
Yeah.
All the way back to the beginning, literally back to Snow White and Pinocchio.
Just the overtures at the beginning of those movies.
They're so
I was doing that the
beautiful.
other day, just like listening to Snow White, the first ever song in a, feature length animated movie. And just that overture, how it starts, and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember listening to that.
Yeah.
You know, and your parents will remember listening to that, and their parents too. It's so cool. It's so cool.
It goes all the way back, and it has continued. I mean, every Disney movie that comes out, I feel like they make sure that there's all good music, but there's always like one that is like the song. And
even with Wish,
Wish, there's a great one. And yeah, I mean, Frozen, like all the favorites that have come out within the last like 5 to 10 years, movie wise, there's favorite songs that like kids and adults just fall in love with. I feel like music has always been an integral part of Disney movies.
Yeah. It's always, it's really like always the best of the best. And that's not to say that every Disney movie that has come out recently, or even Pixar for that matter, are the best of the best. Because there has been some duds, but overall, usually everything from music to animation to story is usually as
top tier.
Yeah, top tier. And yes, I feel like we're a little bit in a lull. We did really like Wish. You know, it wasn't you know, the best thing ever. It wasn't like you know,
wasn't quite the same quality as some of the other favorites.
Like there's a lot of movies in the revival era that, you know, really stick out. Wish, you know, is maybe not as good, but I think our kids will remember this movie a lot whenever they do watch it. He hasn't seen it yet, but I think this one will be kind of a staple. And maybe it's just something about a new movie and we're more critical as we get older because we had so many amazing movies.
Critical,
yeah, that's the hard thing about Disney movies is that they're all so good. And this is
Disney
talked about with Pixar too, is that like every Pixar movie is just absolutely amazing. So you create one that's a good movie. A good movie seems like a bad movie because everything else that's
kind of how I felt
it's
about
hard. It's a tough thing to
Luca.
Yeah, like it was.
I liked
good
it.
movie.
It was cute. There was nothing like bad that I didn't like about it, but it was just kind of like I haven't watched it since.
Yeah. The crazy thing that they're doing right now, because Soul, Turning Red, and Luca all came out on streaming. Now they're putting those back in theaters, and so I think I've thought about this as well, and we're kind of going a little bit off the rails, but I love talking about this stuff. I think people like movies better when you see it in theaters. I love streaming for shows and stuff like that. I tend to get a little bit distracted when I'm watching movies at home. So if Soul, Turning Red, and Luca were in theaters and we saw them in theaters, would we be more focused and like them more? We do like the Turning Red the least. I think it was like, I don't know, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, I don't know, maybe something probably. Like that. But there is something very special about seeing a movie in theaters, just like
first time.
For the first time in
when
theaters,
you see it for the first time in the theater, you can just really focus on things more, and it's like
it's at the scale that you would love to see it in. Yeah,
no distractions.
We noticed that with Haunted Mansion too. Is that we saw Haunted Mansion in theaters. It was our first movie for such a long time because we had kids, and we went and we had such a fun time because it's like fun Haunted Mansion movie, like just being at our favorite theater and like all this stuff. The vibes were just right, and it really kind of led to a really nice experience. Then we know some people who just saw it like at their house and they didn't really like it as much. And maybe they're just more sober minded, I guess, then, you know, but the theater does kind of amp things up. So I do love the theater experience. I think we should continue the putting movies in theaters.
I would be heartbroken if theaters like ceased to exist.
I know.
It feels like so many studios are just going right to streaming, and it's like kind of nice if you have a hard time getting to the theater, but at the same time, it's like the theater experience honestly makes seeing a movie so much more fun.
Yeah.
It's so much more of a like experience, like more
Yeah.
of a just
You
exciting
get the sound,
thing.
you get the visuals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Get your popcorn and candy that you literally only ever get when you're at the theater.
yeah.
And soda.
Oh, it's so good.
Like that's only a theater experience. So you just like soak it up when you do it.
Yeah.
I hope theaters don't go away.
I know they
would
need
be
to.
so sad.
They do need to keep with it. So that definitely plays a role into it as well, I believe. But so the last point we want to touch upon here is that another reason why we watch Disney movies and don't watch kid movies, going back to our main point here, is that we have memories with the films that are outside of those films. So like the parks, right? We have so many memories tied to the parks that when we are taken away from our favorite place, we watch the movies because it really reminds us of a place that we just cherish so much.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I had that exact experience after my first time going to the park when I was a teenager, when I really fell in love with all things Disney, but really the park. Coming home was like so depressing from that trip. It was just like, had to go back to, school and regular life. And I was so bummed out, but I was like, well, I just have to watch all the movies now to make me like feel that connection again. So I really like dove back into watching all the Disney movies, and it's so cool that we have that ability to just like feel the Disney magic that the parks bring when we're at home, because we have all these movies. So many movies that, have been around forever that can just bring that like comfort to us when we're at home.
And even if there's not a ride at the park from the movie that you're watching, there's usually the music that's from that movie that is, in a certain land or something like that. And so it's like really all the senses of like hearing something you might have heard at the park, seeing characters that you met at the park, or like seeing a ride, that you've been on at the park, but like at your own home. And it just brings you back to such a wonderful place. And it is really cool. The funny thing is, when I met you, you had recently, within the past,
year or two, maybe,
like really got that love for the Disney parks. I went to the Disney parks every year, but I didn't really watch Disney movies like on the regular. I mean, we're like 15, 16. So I was kind of like out of it. I was like, I love the parks, like the cool rides, but like not the movies. I mean, I love the movies, but I didn't like sit down and watch them. But when I met you, and you were all about the movies, so you really like reignited my passion for like watching the movies, and that just kind of became a thing that we love to do together to remind us of our memories that we made at the parks too.
Yeah,
I remember that.
One of our first times hanging out, we watched Cinderella.
Yep. Cinderella will always have a special place in our hearts because of that.
Always, yeah.
Our first Disney movie we ever watched.
And the way in which he proposed to me was very Cinderella related. So
it was.
It's a special one for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll always love the movies. They're a part of us, I feel like.
And a part of so many people's lives. Yeah. From I mean, but maybe when we get like really old, or like our kids will get really old, there's going to be like a huge thing of Shrek lovers. You're going to be like, man, Shrek was a classic, 2001.
I mean, it is.
So it is a classic. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that came out
quite
over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, that is weird.
But it's different now, but it's like Disney now, but the next couple of generations will probably see some of these studios not maybe necessarily on par with Disney, but up there a little bit. So,
but I think we'll always know that Disney quality, which reaches all the way back to the 30s, will always be the best of the best. I mean, they've hit their slumps throughout history, and I think that we're kind of in one now.
But they always bounce back.
But they do bounce back, and even so, the ones that we have are head and shoulders above the other movies that are good from the other studios, and they're like, they're classics in their own right, and we still love them. they still will just never hold a candle, I feel like, to the quality of Disney and Pixar.
And the crazy thing too is that Bob Iger recently just talked about this, said, I think we have been, I mean, to this extent, like churning out movies a little bit too quickly. And he said they do want to focus more on quality over quantity soon.
I'm glad.
Thanks, now, Bob. There are a lot of movies already in the pipeline, so we're probably going to do that. But I think they do have to kind of find their magic again, even though we liked Wish. Yeah. There's been some we haven't seen recently, so we'll have to end up watching those. But
curious to see how Inside Out 2 is. And then Toy Story 5 when that time comes.
Both Pixar. I forgot what Disney's next film is.
Yeah, I don't know what Disney has coming up necessarily.
I think they are coming out with a movie next year, but I don't think Disney has really come out and said what it's going to be yet. Yeah. So that will be interesting. I know Frozen 3 will be out soon. I'm not sure if that's next year or the year after, but all very interesting. That is why we tend to watch those Disney movies, but don't really watch other ones. But I want to know, do you guys watch movies from other animation studios? If you don't, what are the reasons? Are they similar to ours? Do you have your own reasons for that? Let us know in the comments below, or, you know, hit us up on Instagram. Let's start talking over there. It'd be great to just hear you guys' thoughts, because I think there are a lot of people who are in a similar boat as us. So we would love to hear from you. But thank you all so much for your love and support. It truly means the world to us, and we are super excited for what's to come in the new year. We have some episode topics already, but we would love to hear from you. If you want to, you know, have us discuss anything, let us know on Instagram or on YouTube, so we could talk about something that you want to hear us discuss. But we love you guys so much, and we will catch you guys next week. See you then.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye.